Fantasy Joe back here with our week 2 wide receiver rankings. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Post every single edge you need on your league mates to win that fantasy football championship. All right here on the channel. Post rankings every single week. Posted buy lows, sell highs this morning. Check that out. Waiver wire Tuesdays, early in the AM as always. So hit that subscribe button, get that edge. If you guys have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section down below. I respond to every single comment. So you need start sit advice between a wide receiver and running back, tight end, QB situations. I can give you advice in there, trades, whatever you guys need. Waiver wire, do I cut this guy? Do I cut that guy? I am your one-stop shop. I respond to every single comment. So hit that subscribe button, stick around, and let's dive into these rankings. These are half-point PPR. So number 1, I've got Jamar Chase against Jacksonville. I have zero concerns from week 1. He's a stud. He's going to have a ton of targets. Good matchup. Number 2, Puka Nacua against Tennessee. I do think that L'Jarius Sneed is a pretty good corner. I think the Tennessee Titans defense is underrated this season, but Puka Nacua looked fantastic. The target volume was excellent in week 1. I expect him to continue to be a top producer as long as him and Matthew Stafford are healthy. 3, CeeDee Lamb against the Giants. We saw a ton of target volume. Obviously, if he caught a few more balls, the production would have been out of this world in game 1. He had 76 yards in the first half on 3 catches, I believe, early. Ended up with 14.5 fantasy points, I believe, or right around there. So still a solid game and, left some meat on the bone, obviously, out there. So I think brighter days are ahead, and he's still produced for you. And that week 1 just wasn't what you were hoping for from that first-round pick and that first week on prime time. But Nico Collins at 4, another guy we got zero concerns about. They played Tampa Bay. Only concern really with Houston is that offensive line situation. Will Stroud have enough time to be able to get the ball to Nico to have long drives to be successful? But with a guy like Nico Collins, you don't really worry about that stuff. The targets are going to come. He's an absolute freak. He can get it done down the field and on screens. 5, Justin Jefferson. It was certainly concerning watching J.J. McCarthy play in the first half as a guy who owns Justin Jefferson in the league. But the target volume, I think brighter days are ahead for J.J. I think Kevin O'Connell is a great coach, so he's still locked in there in my top 5 this week. 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown against Chicago. This Lions offense is going to be a lot better than they were this week. I think it was just some adjustments against a tough Green Bay Packers defensive line and, losing the center from last year and some other key pieces. I think they'll get some of that stuff worked out. When they're not facing such a formidable front, I think it'll be a little bit easier for them to be successful on offense. Although I don't have the same expectations for their offense from last year. I think they'll take a step back, but still be a good team, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is a stud. Drake London got a ton of targets in week 1, 15, I believe, second most of anybody. So you're starting him in a good matchup against Minnesota. 8, Malik Nabers against Dallas. The targets are there. He's an absolute stud. The quarterback is tough right now, but Jackson Dart's going to be in there soon, or a Jameis Winston. Russ is not going to last long, so that's what you got to hope for as a Malik Nabers owner. And I think once he gets a competent quarterback, he's eventually probably going to be in this top 5 situation if he's still getting that target volume. 9, we got Brian Thomas Jr. He plays Cincinnati. Another guy, I know people are a little worried about week 1. I think he's out-targeted, I believe, by Travis Hunter. I'm not really concerned about much of that. He made some mistakes. T-Law didn't look good. I do think there's a reason I had Brian Thomas a little bit lower in my wide receiver rankings because I thought Travis Hunter was a guy that can eat into his workload, but I still think he is going to be good for fantasy football. He's in my top 10 this week. 10, A.J. Brown, another guy I think will bounce back. They might have to throw the ball a little bit against Kansas City, although that defense looked a little bit less Chiefs-like in week 1 against the Chargers, but it's hard to tell. Week 1, it's one game sample size. Also, is it that the Chargers are a lot better? Is it that the Chiefs are worse? Really tough to tell in those one games. Give me one matchup that they just exploit, things like that. But I think A.J. Brown, brighter days are ahead for sure. 11, Jackson Smith and Njigba, ton of target volume in week 1. Play him in every single matchup. He is definitely upgraded rest of the season. 12, we have T. Higgins against Jacksonville, another guy I'm just not concerned with. He'll be excellent. Great quarterback. 13, Mike Evans. Still the wide receiver 1 in his team, even though Puka got the 2 touchdowns week 1. This matchup against Houston, and Baker looked excellent. That was the big thing to me. Baker really just looks like he's just been that guy for a while now. And Mike Evans is number one wide receiver, and he's an absolute stud as well. 14, DK Metcalf. This one might be a bit of a projection, but I am buying into the revenge game narrative against Seattle. They traded him away. I think he's going to want to go get after him. And I think he's going to have a good game. They've got some good corners there. It's not the easiest matchup for a wide receiver, but the volume that he should continue to get in the Seahawks offense, I think will offset that. And I think Aaron Rodgers knows to get him the ball in this one. 15, we got Garrett Wilson against Buffalo. They should have to throw in this one. We saw how formidable that Buffalo Bills offense was in week 1, and Justin Fields looked good as well. So Garrett Wilson getting that target volume. Solid matchup, good enough with the banged-up Bills secondary right now, and just knowing you'll need to score. So Garrett Wilson, a great play this week. Devontae Adams against Tennessee, he had 8 targets. Looked good. Not a terrible matchup for him either. 17, Zay Flowers against Cleveland. I think as long as Isaiah Likely is out, which I don't think he'll play this week, he's coming off a broken foot, so he'll probably be slow this 1 or 2 weeks coming back. But I think Zay Flowers is going to get up to a hot start. Patrick Ricard being out as well, I think helps with other formations they were doing, keeping more wide receivers on the field. But Zay Flowers is a stud. He's the number 1 wide receiver on this offense. I think he's going to be the number 1 target by the end of the year as well. So another guy I think will be good for fantasy football this year. 18, Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he looked pretty darn good in week 1. Kyler certainly had some concerns. He's also playing sick. They're playing Carolina. They do have J.C. Horn. But, I still think Marv can just go out there and get it done. Another guy I've given a slight upgrade to this season. He is coming off a great game, and I don't love having my number 1 wide receiver attached to Kyler Murray, where I still think Trey McBride is going to be the number 1 target on that offense, although I do think it's funneled the passing game directly to those 2 guys, which we've definitely seen. Passing games are formidable. Be able to support 2 high-end fantasy producers. We've seen 2 top 12 wide receivers in the same team. But when that quarterback is Kyler Murray, I don't know if that is possible, yet to be seen. But that just tempers my expectations on Marv a little bit. But I still think he'll be a 1,000-yard guy this year, 8 touchdowns. That's a pretty darn good wide receiver. That's getting close to fantasy or wide receiver 1 range. So, definitely upgrade for him. 19, we got Cortland Sutton against Indy. I think he should be good this week. He's the number 1 guy there, and Bo Nix should play better. Terry McLaurin against Green Bay. Green Bay, if they do have a weakness, it's that secondary. So especially the cornerbacks, their safeties are pretty good, but the corners are pretty weak. So I think Terry can get it going. I also really like Deebo Samuel, who I have against 25. They do a lot of things in the screen game. I think they'll utilize that a lot. Their offensive coordinator does that a lot already. They lead the league in screens. And then when you got a pass rush like the Packers looked in week 1, I think they'll look to get the ball to the perimeter quickly. Calvin Ridley against the Rams. Cam Ward looked good. He had some big drops, so I think he's due for more. 22, I've got Ladd McConkey against Vegas. I've got him as the number 1 wide receiver in his offense. I think the target totals will be somewhat similar between Ladd and Keenan Allen, at least as long as Keenan is, good to go and still moving well. But I just think Ladd's the most explosive player, so I think he's going to end up with the most productive stats. And I do think, maybe Keenan has a few more targets, but it's like I would rather have 9 targets from Ladd McConkey than 11 for Keenan Allen, most likely most weeks, just because of that explosive ability, and 9's not a shabby number either. 23, Jacoby Myers. I thought he looked really good in week 1, and obviously he's the number 1 wide receiver on this offense. Geno also looked really good, so massive upgrade for him there. Talked about Keenan Allen already. Tedero McMillan, another guy, had an impressive catch in week 1, plays Arizona. I do think Will Johnson, their cornerback there, also a rookie, is legit. I think he's the real deal, but I still think the target volume of McMillan and his talent and size, you're playing him. And Emeka Puka, only 6 targets, so temper your expectations a little bit, but he's an absolute stud. There's a reason he's a top 24 play for me last week. I think we had 22, so he's a must start. But I think more targets are going to come. And obviously he's scoring 2 touchdowns. I think he could have a rookie year similar to a Calvin Ridley had his rookie year where he had 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Obviously jumping off of that hot start with 2 makes that a lot more possible. But I think he can definitely do that attached to a quarterback like Baker Mayfield. And I think, 1,100, 1,200 yards is within the realm of possibilities as well, depending how Chris Godwin returns. If Mike Evans misses time, which he's done the last 4 years with hamstring injuries, there's just variables in this offense over the NFL season that affect that ceiling case. But I think that's within the realm of possibilities at this point. 28. Hollywood Brown, 16 targets, led the NFL, plays Philly, tough cornerbacks, tough defense, but you can definitely play him coming off that much volume in the passing game. 29, Devonta Smith, another guy I think will be just fine. Plays Kansas City. They may need to throw a little bit more, but again, we'll see. 30, Jameson Williams. They play Chicago, a guy who just got a fat extension. You love that, especially with how good Isaac Tesla has looked. But I think he's a guy who can definitely get it done. He's a good play every single week. I would love to start him in my flex and just get those explosive weeks where you're just destroying your opponent because you got Jameson Williams. And if he has a week where he goes out there and gets you 7, he doesn't kill you either. If he's in that flex spot and you've got a solid roster. So 31, Ricky Pearsall against New Orleans. Quarterback situation, something to monitor, but he's the number one target with how many guys that have banged up right there. It's basically going to be the Ricky Pearsall show and Christian McCaffrey. Juwan Jennings may be back this week, but if he is, he's still banged up, and Pearsall looked really good. So you're playing him even if Brock Purdy misses, which is definitely possible, but if Brock Purdy's in, upgrade for sure. 32, Rome Odunze plays Detroit, number one wide receiver on that offense. Brighter days are ahead. Chris Olave, San Francisco, had good target volume in this last one. They're going to run a lot more plays this year with Kellen Moore, obviously going to be behind a lot in passing situations. All that stuff is great for Chris Olave, though, and he's healthy right now and a great wide receiver. 34, we've got George Pickens against the Giants. I'm ready to roll him out there. As long as the Eagles, or excuse me, not the Eagles, what am I saying? As long as the Cowboys offensive line can stand up to the Giants pass rush, I think George Pickens has a really good game in this one. The Cowboys offensive line looked good last week when they played the Eagles, who obviously have a formidable pass rush. Obviously, we saw Jalen Carter get thrown out before he even played a snap. But they look good in week 1, so that's a good sign. I do think George Pickens is going to have some great games for fantasy football. Kind of similar to a Jameson Williams, where it's just going to be some explosive games where he's got, 110 and 1 because he catches a 60-yard touchdown. But yeah, Travis Hunter, number 35, 8 targets in week 1, looked good. Plays Cincinnati. Weak defense, I'm playing him. 36, Keon Coleman. Plays the Jets. This is one of the most intriguing ones for me because if he goes out there and gets another 9 targets, he had 11 in week 1 and produces for fantasy football, I am instantly playing him every single week. He might even be a top 24 wide receiver the next week. I just want to see, is he going to get the target volume when they Bills will have to throw the ball 46 times? We saw them love to run the ball last year. What does it look like in a game where they're not really trailing the whole time? I expect we'll see that this week against the Jets. But like I said, if he hauls in 9 targets this week, Keon Coleman is legit. So yeah, check in. This has been Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out the running back rankings. Check out the buy low, sell highs if you haven't. Hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section down below. I will help you guys out with any fantasy situations you guys have. Thank you guys for watching.